Hello. Welcome, one and all. Is this thing on? I think so. Go live a little early. Make sure my audio works before my guests arrive, right? Make sure everything's in order, tech support wise, right? Hopefully, this will be a good discussion. I got a lot of questions for this guy, okay? He made a post asking people to reach out to him to be on their podcasts and being the entrepreneuring, I don't know how to say that word. Okay. Being the capitalist I am, I've decided to reach out and have him on and talk to him a little bit about the state of Democrats. How should Democrats handle these next few years? We don't have the Senate anymore, right? We don't have the House. We don't have the presidency. So what should we be doing? How do we get through the changes that we want to get through, right? How do we oppose the changes we don't? What should be kind of the stance nationally, and what should Democrats do locally? It'll be a great discussion. I'm excited to have it. It'll be fun. Zero Fucks, nice to see you. Welcome to the show. Let's see who else is here. I know it's a little early, so it's gonna take a minute. I'm gotta get ready myself here. Premature wick, yeah. Now, premature is when you end early, buddy. It's okay to start early. Bathory Dusk, nice to see you. Dylan Bowser, hello. Right? Welcome. Fun news, okay, that I just heard today. They are releasing and by they I mean the House Ethics Committee is releasing their report on Matt Gaetz and his alleged violations of ethics. So that'll be fun. I'm excited for that to come out. I'm glad they are. I thought that was gone forever. I thought, ladies and gentlemen, right, that they didn't have jurisdiction over anymore. So they made a deal not to release it. That was my headcanon. But it looks like that they're releasing it anyway, even though Matt Gaetz resigned. So I'm really excited to dig into that. It'll be fun. I want to see what they found, if anything. I will say this. If they release the ethics report and they conclude that he hasn't really done anything, that they can't find any real evidence, then I'll have some apologizing to do. I don't think that's going to be the case, but we'll find out. We will find out. How's everyone else doing today? Having fun? I hope so. Making sure everyone's able to get to where they need to go. He just DM'd me on Twitter. Our guest today is Armand Domalewski. I think I'm saying his name right. We'll ask when he gets here. He is the co-founder of YIMBYs for Harris. I'll let him introduce himself a little better when he arrives. But yeah, I'm really excited to talk to him and see what he has to say. You guys be nice when he gets here, okay? Cernus says, "Oh God." No, I'm Wick. I don't know who you think this was. Do you not like this guy? Is he a guy you don't like? Nice to see you, Cernus, by the way. Welcome to my Twitch viewers. Look, I always give at least some credit to someone who's willing to come on and talk. And I think that everyone should. If someone's willing to get on and to discuss their ideas, whether I severely disagree or not, and to be clear, I don't think I disagree with this guy about a lot. I read a lot of his posts, and I agree with most of them. So yeah, we'll see. AKA Batosi, nice to see you. Welcome to the show. Letting everyone kind of funnel in as we go. Again, this is another reason I start early, because for whatever reason, it takes you guys a few minutes to realize I'm here. I don't know if that's my settings or simply the fact that people are, slow. But no, I'm glad you guys are here. It should be fun. Should be a good discussion. Um, Christmas is coming up. You guys ready for it? Have you gotten presents for all your family and friends? Have you gotten presents for your favorite streamer? Or your second or third favorite streamer? Whichever favorite I am. I don't know which one I am for you guys. Cerna says, no, I agree. I appreciate those people are willing to chat to people online. Yeah, absolutely. Dylan Bowser says, I don't get any Wick pics when you go live. I'm relying on my watch and the Discord notification. That's something I need to figure out how to fix. Have you clicked on the notification icon on the YouTube? That might be it. You gotta click notification so it lets you know when I go live. Batozzi? Batozzi. Okay. Sorry. I'm terrible at pronouncing words. It's one of the unfortunate side effects of learning to speak through reading is I'm very bad at pronunciation. I'm hopefully gonna get Brian Tyler Cohen on in the new year. We're working on that. It's a process. Okay, it's a process. Oh boy, oh boy. Another thing that happened recently that I want to talk about before our guest gets here. We're waiting for him. Okay. Before our guest gets here. So recently there was an election to the House Oversight Committee? Hold on. Yeah, the House Oversight Committee, I believe. AOC, you guys know her? She wanted the spot. She lobbied for the spot. She ran for the spot. She was turned down. Reportedly, Nancy Pelosi pulled some strings, made sure that she wasn't able to get the spot. A little infighting there. I don't know the details. I'll ask Armand when he gets here about the details. Oh, here we go. Boom. Okay, Armand. Let's see. Copy user ID. He was created for. Why is he having troubles? Hey, mods, can you do me a favor, buddies? If you're listening to this, we're having an issue getting him on the stream, and I don't know why. Hold on. Let me go to the settings. I need to give him a role. Okay, one moment. We've had this problem before. Here we go. Roles. Wicked. Okay. He should have the role. And if he refreshes, he should be able to see backstage. And once he jumps on there, I'll pull him in and we'll be good. Beautiful. Accept. Hey, just gave you the role in my Discord. You might have to refresh, but after you do, you should see the backstage room. Just jump on in. Polar Knights, nice to see you, by the way. We need to keep an eye on Wick TV. You never know with these liberals. True. Here we are. Hello, you're live. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Beautiful. We have a connection. We have an audible connection. You got a camera for us today, sir?
Ew.
Okay, let's make sure it works.
Oh,
Wonderful. We can see you. We can hear you. Uh, are you ready to do this, sir?
yeah. Just
Okay.
get some lights. It's a
Yeah,
little
take
dark
your
in here.
time. Get it all set up. Get it all ready. Okay. Am I saying that name right, by the way? Armand Domalewski. Is that how you say your
Yeah,
name? Okay.
that's how I say it. Well, in Polish it's Domalewski, but the like anglicized is Domalewski.
Domalewski.
Hmm.
I'll try. We'll stick with
Just say
Armand.
Domalewski is totally fine.
Okay.
Yeah,
We'll
the
stick with
Armand.
Armand for
Armand.
now. Okay.
Yeah.
So first of all, thanks for agreeing to come on to my show. I do appreciate
Yes.
it. And I'm always looking to talk with different people and get their kind of sense of things. Um, I follow you on Twitter. I see a lot of your posts. I agree with most of them. Some I don't. But I guess my first question for you, or I guess first of all, tell my audience who you are. Why should they care what you have to say? Go ahead.
Well, I don't know if I can answer the second one, but
Fair.
my name's Armand Domalewski. For a day job, I'm a data analyst in San Francisco. Um, my hobby essentially is politics. I used to work in politics professionally. I worked on a lot of state and local campaigns,
Okay.
focused primarily on housing policy, urbanism, affordability, and now I'm still very involved in that stuff, whether it is through Twitter or in real life. Um, as to why people should care, honestly, I don't know. Sometimes my tweets are funny, but I think what people should care about is the ideas they support and believe in because I think they're correct.
Fair enough.
I'm trying to get more folks to agree with them.
Well, what is the one thing if you could wave a
Mhm.
magic wand and convince the American public to support one cause that you support, what cause would that be and why?
Hmm. Oh man, it's hard to pick. Probably it would be housing. I just think because it's such a deep root issue.
Housing, what can you elaborate, like housing as in
So
affordability,
so I
as
got
in
into yeah. So I got into like really political activity around 2015. Like I was always interested, but I worked in public policy as an economic analyst working on renewable energy and local housing tax credit policy. And through that work, and then just seeing a lot of stuff that happened in San Francisco, I got very invested in sort of the guts of the housing problem. Um, where I go to planning commissions and go to hearings, and this was early days of what's now known as the YIMBY movement. And there'd be a couple of us, and then just tons of people there, older homeowners, so on, who are just like, I don't want my neighborhood to change. I'm opposed to it. Um, and I saw sort of from those beginnings, and I've dealt with this now for a long time, but sort of why housing is so unaffordable in the United States is that we have a giant thicket of laws, primarily zoning codes, but also building codes, different regulations that make it extremely hard to build housing. And I think that's the reason that's so important is because housing, we were kind of the canary in the coal mine in San Francisco and in New York City, where it was really unaffordable in those areas, but the rest of the country was like, it's so fine. But that problem has metastasized, and now like we organized this YIMBYs for Harris call, for example. Speakers from all over the country, and
mm-hmm.
it blew my mind to see like the mayor of Cleveland wanted to speak. And if you told me 10 years ago that like the mayor of Cleveland was
Yeah.
concerned about housing affordability, crazy, right? But we are now in this place where um, people cannot afford homes, and it's isn't that it's I think it's so foundational. It's like one, it's just like the number one expense for most Americans. Like, by far, most of what you spend on is your housing. But second, I think it just like, really restricts freedom and mobility. On a personal ways, I know friends who can't break up with like an abusive partner because they don't have a place to go.
Damn.
But
Yeah.
also macro ways of just a lot of economic growth and prosperity is constrained because people are really restricted to where they can live and how they can live. And so
Okay.
if I could change anything and convince people on is to agree with me on the need for like less restrictive rules around housing and building a lot more housing.
I mean, I think that most people can get on board with that. Everyone wants to afford a house, right?
Yeah.
It's one of those things where I see on occasion I'll see opposition to it, and I
Mm,
guess the opposite of a YIMBY for my audience would be a NIMBY. The people who are like not in my
yeah,
backyard, right? And who are scared or worried that their investment in their house, right, will go down. Their property values will go down
yeah.
if we make it more affordable. What would be your answer to people who do own a home, who paid a lot of money for their home and who are like, well, I worry if we change these laws, uh, the investment that I made in my home is going to go down. What would you say to those people?
One thing I'll say is that like when I first started doing this stuff for many years, I thought that that was the primary opposition. But what I've experienced is, especially when it comes to projects that are not specifically housing. So, for example, like if people are building a new transit line or even they're building a new park, a lot of people will oppose those things for very similar reasons that they oppose housing, even though objectively, like those things will raise their property values, right? Like it's everyone agrees that like building a park near you will make your home worth a lot more. And I think it's more cultural. People like there are some real tangible things like parking, congestion, that scares people. But a lot of it also is just, I like my neighborhood the way it is. I don't want it to change. This is a certain way of life I had. It's sort of a deeper cultural issue. So that's the first thing I would say is that like most of
Interesting.
the opposition is not around like the value of people's property. It's more about their way of life being threatened. Then I'd say
Cultural,
on the
kind of a
property rights
traditional.
stuff, right?
Yeah, just a cultural like opposition to that, right? Is that what you're saying? Like they're worried
Yeah, like,
because okay, just trying to get. And thank you for the
well,
raid, Chris Speaks on Twitch. Appreciate you. Hit that follow button. Okay. Anyway, continue, please.
yeah, of course. I can rant on about this stuff forever, but no, I 100% agree. It's like I think it's a like a cultural issue,
Okay.
um, more than it is like an economic one for folks who oppose it.
Interesting.
Um,
Well, that's one of those things where I feel like when an issue becomes part of the culture war, so to speak, it
mhm,
becomes intractable in a real way. It's hard
mm,
to make any headway in that because it's now part of a bigger, larger narrative. Um,
yeah,
how is it? uh, Let's try this. Do you consider yourself a Democrat, sir?
yes,
Yes.
100%.
Has the Democratic Party been good stewards or good advocates for what you want to see when it comes to housing? And if
Yeah,
not, why not?
um, absolutely not. The truth is that like most of the most expensive areas in America are governed primarily by Democrats. Um, and I would say that they haven't been great on this issue primarily because I'd say there's like two things. Like one's a bigger ideological one, one's a more practical one of like you'll often see in like Republican controlled areas and in Democrat controlled areas, the arguments for opposing housing end up being very similar. Like people are like, I don't want more traffic, or like I don't want to ruin the character of my neighborhood. And partisanship becomes a lot less important on local politics, um, where you will see people who have very different opinions on like abortion being agreeing on things around like housing because they see that as like a more sort of concrete, direct thing in their lives. And it's often like in California, I've talked to a lot of Republicans. I'm like, well, why are you opposing building this housing? Aren't you like a free market guy? Like people should do what they want on their property.
Yeah,
Um, and that's like an exception they make because they don't want more traffic, don't want new people, um, stuff like that. And
yeah.
so I think there are some elements in the Democratic Party that are like ideologically opposed to market housing because they see it as like a lot of them don't like markets in general, and so they don't
Certainly.
like the idea of deregulation being a good thing. Um, but in practice, what I found is that those people are more useful for generating arguments that people who like don't want housing for other reasons can use to like sound better. I've met so many people who are like, I was like, straight up who are like really conservative, hate DI and wokeness, and suddenly it'll be like these evil developers and gentrification. I'm like, really? You believe that? No,
they
I
just
don't
they
believe
just
you.
got their it's funny to see how it spreads, and you'll hear an argument on the right and that will be adopted by people on the left when it's
Yeah.
convenient for them. That's always interesting to me, and vice versa as well. So I guess
Like, I'm curious,
please.
for you, like, what's I haven't looked that much into like your show or stuff like that. What's your deal, I guess? I'm
What's my
curious.
deal? That's a good question. No, I'm Democrat, traditional Democrat. I do have some real issues with the extreme left. I'm a moderate in a lot of ways. I fight against extremism, whether I find that on the right or the left, and I try to have interesting conversations with people I find to have interesting points of view. I also want to kind of do away with this kind of idea that half the country thinks the other half is an enemy. And I think
Mm.
we need to kind of get away from that mindset. It's only going to cause us pain, and it's no matter who wins, it's only going to be a problem going forward. So I try to do that. I have a lot of, again, big issues with extremists, both on the left and the right. But I mean, I'm 41 years old. I've voted Democrat all my life. I voted for Biden. I voted for Harris when she ran, even
Mm.
though I still a little upset that they kicked out Biden, right? So that's kind of my deal. Um,
Yeah.
well, given that, like, why are you a Democrat? This is something I like to ask people, like why they believe what they believe. So you said you're a Democrat. You said that the Democrats weren't the best stewards of your biggest issue. So why are you a Democrat?
Well, one thing about my issue is that like Republicans are even worse. I mean,
Fair.
Kamala at least like wanted to, from a national perspective, like pro housing ideas have really become much more popular. Like Kamala explicitly like advocated for YIMBY ideas, which is why I created YIMBYs for Harris. Barack Obama, there's actually a really funny moment where his speechwriter went on a podcast the next day after his speech, and he's like, "Yeah, first Barack Obama, he was making these like pro housing YIMBY arguments at the DNC, and he wanted to use the phrase zoning codes." And I was like, "You can't use that in a national speech." I was like, "Wow, Barack Obama wanted to talk about like zoning law." That's amazing. But the other things, fundamentally, my values are to support working class people. I think that we are, I understand that the role of government is to, it's actually an interesting quote. Like, so Bill Clinton's famous quote that people remember is, the era of big government's over. But what was recently resurfaced was actually originally that version of the quote supposed to say, the era of big government is over, but the era of each man for himself can never return. And that's something I really believe to my core, which is that um, things we can do together are more than the sum of our parts, right? Like,
Yeah.
and there are obviously things that government shouldn't do and is not best at, but then I think there are vital roles like ensuring everybody has access to affordable healthcare, providing high quality education. Like, those are the only things that we can do collectively, and I think that fundamentally that's like at the core of what it means to be a Democrat.
No, I think that's a good answer. You'd be surprised how many people can't really give an answer to that question when I ask them on the
Mm.
left or the right. And usually it's, well, I don't like the other guy's worse is most of the time what I get, right? Like I hate
In
the
fairness
other
to
guy.
that, I think like
Oh, you cut out? I can't hear you anymore. Your audio's gone?
sorry, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, now I
Hear
can.
me?
I don't know what
Okay, I
happened,
get
but
this.
yeah.
Sorry about that. I was gonna say, in fairness to those people, like because we have a two-party
A
system,
duopoly. Yep.
um, you have to pick one side or the other. And the world's, there's 300 million Americans. You have lots of different ideas, and so hard to be like have a unified thing, right? There's a lot of people I'm in coalition with, who, like strongly disagree with me, right? It's the nature of it, but
Yeah,
I don't necessarily blame people for not having a coherent answer because it's like hard when you're trying to really simplify a very complex reality.
it is difficult, and it's something I have had to hold my nose on various occasions and say,
Yeah.
you know what, it's not my first pick, but we're gonna go with it. We're gonna see what we do. Um, if okay, so I know probably everyone's asked you this question before, but I'm gonna ask it because I'm very curious. We lost. November came around. We lost. Why?
Yeah.
We shouldn't have. Like Trump's a uniquely bad candidate, but we failed to beat him. What happened?
I'm glad you pointed that out because I feel like a lot of people really want to like focus on the campaign itself. And I'm sure, I have my critiques. There's a zillion different things. But that why the campaign lost is a question of like why we were maybe 1 or 2 points off. But I think the real question is why were we within even 1 or 2 points of Donald Trump? It's like one of the most repulsive human beings I've ever seen in politics. Like a giant catastrophe of a man. Like many, many people in this country who really don't like Donald Trump, who still voted for him. Which says to me, like, that's how poorly they thought of the Democratic Party's alternative.
Yeah, why? That's
Um,
that's the $1 million question, right?
yeah.
Why? Because you're exactly correct. There are a lot of people in my audience who are Trump voters, but they don't like Trump. They just don't like Democrats more. So yeah, that's a good question. Why have we got such a bad reputation with these people?
I think we have a structural problem of there are a lot of things. So, like, I'd say, like, the first bucket on economic policy, just that, like, people really don't like inflation. Went up a lot under Biden. I think from a policy perspective, like, what I've been banging the drum about forever was like, if you're going to do this big stimulus effort, which I think was the right thing to do. We had the best economic recovery of most like wealthy nations, but you need to put in rules to make supply side response faster. So if you're like pouring in a lot of money for clean energy, for example, but the rules to approve clean energies are resulting in lawsuits that take 30 years, it's going to raise prices because there's no ability to like for supply to expand to meet the demand. So inflation really hit us as it did everybody, but it hurt. I think on the second thing is that, and you see this in the United States, but you see this globally, there's been a real divergence between college educated and non-college educated folks. I don't yet know. I don't think there's a good answer as to why. Is it the case that like the sort of people who go to college have different worldviews, or is it going to college itself that changes your worldview? Probably a bit of both, but
Yeah, probably
I,
half a dozen of one, six of the other. But go on, please.
I think that the dividing line you've seen on it is that college, people who go to college have become more and more uniformly socially liberal. It did not used to be the case that they were so much. And we've moved further and further on like socially liberal issues. And I say this as a person who's very socially liberal. Um, and I think a lot of it's we've sort of thought that like everything would be like gay marriage in that it would just be subsequent generation would become more left wing. But that has proven to be just not true. And if you ask, like, that's like the way you see union voters, for example. If Joe Biden did everything a lot of these union groups demanded straight up, like for as policy demands, and what the union leaders found is like, sure, their members might be happy that like he gave the specific demands, but they're mad about immigration or transgender issues or like guns. And so I think that there's been a
Well,
most successful Democratic candidates down ballot were the ones who mixed like sort of a populist economic message, but moderated very hard on um, local issues,
do
particularly
you
on immigration this
do you
cycle.
think that we should, as a party nationally, kind of adopt that strategy? I've heard from both directions here. One's like,
Mhm.
it makes no difference at all if we support rights for X if we can't get elected. But at the
Yeah.
same time, it does feel wrong to just kind of throw a group of people under the bus just because they don't
Mhm.
poll well. So what should be our strategy nationally going forward when it comes to immigration and the border?
Um, well, I think there's all of these issues are like case by case, right? Sometimes it's generally speaking, if an issue is not super salient, like it's not the top of voters' radar, even if they really disagree with you don't necessarily, as a party, have to make concessions from a political perspective because, like, there's lots of like little obscure things. I'm sure lots of people disagree with Democrats on, but they're like not paying attention. They don't really care. And if they moderated, it wouldn't help. Immigration, though, is like number two after like inflation, immigration were like way by far away the biggest priorities. Um, and so I think that like on immigration. Um, if you look at the substance of Biden's policy changes, there were a lot of like smaller tweaks, but if you like, what I would say is not so much that there's a lot of people are pro-migration, and I'm pro-migration. Were arguing was that, oh, Biden, it's not like Biden suddenly changed policy a lot to make asylum claims a lot easier. It's more that like we had an economic period of economic growth, there was huge demand for labor, and lots more people wanted to come in, and then surge in demand itself created more demand because it overloaded the asylum system. So when you overload the asylum system, now you've got like a 5 year period in which like you are legally allowed to work in the United States, and your worst case scenario is you get sent home after 5 years. Which frankly, a lot of folks that's what they want to do anyways, come make some money and go back. And your best case is like you might get a permit. And what I think Biden failed to address is he only saw this as like a messaging issue. And
Okay.
the truth is like the substance of it, which is beyond what Americans wanted. They didn't want a chaotic border process. They
Yes.
didn't want to see news stories about cities being overwhelmed by services. And so I think the real mistake there was that Democrats did not credibly like work to address the issue early on. And
Hmm.
only like really pivoted at the very end in a panic, and they just weren't credible on it anymore.
One of the
Um,
uh one of the criticisms I've heard, because I talked to a lot of people who are on the left. I'm not sure if you're
mhm,
familiar who Josiah is from Pondering Politics, or Adam Mockler, or any of these people, right? Uh, so they, Econoboy, a few others, they always tell me the same thing when I bring these
mhm,
things up. They said, well, the people wanted something that was different, but all they got was more of the same. And had the Democratic Party, had Harris took strong, more left leaning stances, then
mhm.
people would have shown up and voted for her in better numbers. And so the Democrats, having lost this election by running to the center, quote unquote, need to stop doing that and instead push for more leftward policies because it's clear that that's what the people want. What do you think of that argument? What are your thoughts?
There's been a long running debate in Democratic politics about like turnout versus persuasion, right? Are you trying to persuade some people who would have voted otherwise, or are you trying to turn new people out? I think the issue that's really like this argument has become much weaker now that the sort of person who's like less likely to turn out, is less attention to politics. When you do talk to them and when they do survey them, they're generally more conservative leaning. And Bernie was sort of like the test model for this in the Democratic primaries. There's no real indication that like Bernie was able to like suddenly mobilize a lot of people who have never voted before. He did have a good job of persuading Democrats to his position, and like had a pretty successful, didn't win, but a pretty successful campaign. But his base was not primarily people, or even like he showed no evidence of this. Like, if we just have a big left wing message, these people who don't participate will be compelled to come out and vote. And I think it's always been a little unrealistic because a lot of those folks in politics don't know. A lot of people aren't political. And so they don't like the sort of person who doesn't vote at all. Their lives are very different. People who do vote. And the idea that, like, my brother, for example, right? He's love
Okay.
him, good guy, like not political at all, really. Um, and he like the idea that like, oh, if he like, how is he going to even experience this message? I guess he'll see an ad on pre-roll on YouTube, right? Or maybe an article come across his feed. Um, and someone who's like doesn't even pay that much attention to politics, the idea that like the message will code to him as radical is already iffy because like not like he knows enough about politics to discern that.
Certainly.
But then the idea that like, oh my God, I saw this for YouTube pre-roll and now I'm going to become a voter, like it's just
Well,
not really
one of
realistic.
one of the things I will give that kind of argument though is if you ask me what was Harris's top policy propositions this time
Hmm?
around, it was 50,000 for new homeowners, or was it 25? Uh, a
25,
certain
yeah.
amount for new business loans, and that that's all I can think of that she
Oh,
messaged on, and also that she wasn't Trump. Those were the three. Okay. Um, those aren't exactly like inspiring messages. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? Like I'm not like, oh wow, this is amazing. I mean, they're good policies, but I don't see that drawing a large um kind of populist or popular uh breadth of new voters or anything. What should our messaging be? Right, when it comes to these things, because people do want a reason to vote Democrat. What should be we
I
be
mean, I
running
think
on?
one mistake we make is like we as a party are very like, we have big coalitions, and a lot of diverse and complicated interests. And so when we get the ability to legislate, we have a tendency to sort of do a lot of everything. And then it doesn't, like, we spend billions of dollars on like the CHIPS Act and the IRA. And I don't think the average American even knows what those things are. Um, it's not as clean, simple, like way more people remember like the stimulus checks because it's like
Yeah,
simple, it's
they got
direct,
money.
it's obvious.
Yeah.
I think part of it's like we just need to pretty focus. It's like do some things really well or like big and as a material difference and change in people's lives.
Okay.
I also think some of it's just like people need to see that we govern well, like the places that we run, San Francisco, New York City, like they have very visible public disorder. It's very expensive to live there. The transit infrastructure is like not great, not improving. And there's a very real sense, like even amongst people who still reliably vote Democrat because they hold their nose and do it, of like dissatisfaction with how it looks and how things are functioning. Um, and my family's in Poland, except for my parents and my brother, because my parents are refugees to the U.S. And I
Okay.
remember my grandma visited, and she sat me down. It's like, Armand, and she lives in this tiny village in Poland. And she's like, I saw some stuff, some video of San Francisco. Like, are you okay? Are you safe? I'm like, Grandma, you live in, a developing country, and I live in San Francisco, and you're worried about me. Like, I'm fine. But I get why the concern is. You know, I guess I'm rambling a bit because, like, I don't think it's just about a message. It's hard to figure out what message will be 4 years from now, but I think like, to have a stronger foundation, people need to trust you that you can do a good job.
Absolutely. No, I
And it's not enough to,
100%. What would is
it's not
there
enough to
any
say like,
city?
oh, we think. That,
Is there?
sorry,
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't mean to cut you off or anything, but
no,
on
no,
that
go ahead.
note, is there any like city or state or what's the model? Right? What are we going to be? What should we be directing the cameras to? Which city? Which governor? Which mayor? Which leader locally
Mm.
of a Democrat that shows that our policies work? Um, where are we pointing those cameras at, right? I do want to
Yep.
talk to you about like the
Yeah.
the Will Stancil take of the the media landscape, but yeah, where should we be pointing these cameras at? What city?
I honestly don't think there's like a single prominent city that's been all right. I would say one example that people don't talk about enough is Jersey City. Stephen Phillip was the mayor there. He's running for governor there. It's been quiet. Part of the reason that like New York City has not completely exploded in unaffordability is you've seen Jersey City build like enormous amounts of housing. And also they reduced like traffic fatalities because they did a lot of street redesigns, um, traffic calming, stuff like that. To the point now, even though drivers originally were against it, it's now easier, more convenient to get around as a driver, but also way safer for pedestrians. Like on at least on urbanist issues, which I really care about. Like I think Jersey City's done a decent job. Like you see
Okay,
the huge amount of people. It's like New York City's population has not increased a lot, even though it's like had more jobs and so on. And a lot of it's because Jersey City's like doing all the lifting of building the housing for it. So I think that's like good in those ways, but I don't think there's a single place. Like that's why I think it's like a collective issue. It's like I don't think there's a
that
single
is an
place in
issue though.
America.
If we
Yeah,
can't point to a success story, that's an issue. um,
we're just not world. We don't have world class cities. Like I love America. I love our cities,
yeah,
but like Paris, like a medium French city you've never heard of has like better infrastructure and better transit and like more affordable homes than like New York City. They're like they build more rail, they have better, more clean energy. Um, you know, Tokyo's amazing. Like when I talk about like cities to model after, it's never American ones. It's honest, it's like
Fair
cities around the
enough.
world.
Fair enough. No, I get that, and I guess it's hard, given your urbanist leanings and how that's kind of your most important thing. Um, one of the one of the other issues I wanted to talk to you about, and I think I mentioned it recently, is the fact that your mother in Poland is hearing about problems in leftist cities, right? In
Yeah, my
America.
grandma,
Your
but yeah,
grandma, I'm sorry, my bad.
that's it.
Um, does that indicate like the media landscape? Um, a lot of people I talk to say that it's more and more and more becoming bought out by right wing conglomerates. Look at
Mm,
Elon Musk and Twitter. Look at the Daily
yeah.
Wire. Look at all these kind of like multi-million-dollar, and in some cases billion-dollar kind of media structures. How as Democrats do we deal with that? What should we be
Mm.
doing?
Well, I think one mistake the Democrats make, and I saw this after the election, they think of it as like an investment. Because it happens every time. I've been in politics enough, I've worked enough cycles, so it's like after election happens, you want to like lobby for your group and be like, this is why my advocacy group or why my nonprofit is the answer. Um, so there's this whole like funny discourse about like building a liberal Joe Rogan.
Yeah,
Um,
I've
I
seen
think
that. Yeah.
it mistakes like what they think it's a supply problem when it's really a demand problem, in that like there's a reason why sort of like organically popular alternative media stuff tends to lean right. There's a lot of different reasons, but like Joe Rogan himself used to have like more left wing views, and then he reacted in a lot of ways that Democrats were governing. And I'm not saying his it's legitimate or not legitimate, but I do think it's a mistake to think that this is just a thing that we can top down fix just by like ranting on media people. Like if you think about it, there's a lot of like alternative left wing media. Alternative left wing media spends all of its time shitting on Democrats, and then alternative right wing media spends all of its time shitting on Democrats. There isn't like uh, yeah, I think there's like Democrats need to change things about themselves so that that sort of person um, is more likely and highly
I
of them.
I'm
And I think that a lot of that's cultural, right? A
yeah.
lot of the way people experience what
Mm.
Democrats are like is not even like a law that we passed. It's like work. He took a
See,
seminar on like harassment, and like you didn't like it. So,
yeah, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying, and I agree with your first part, right? That it's like a
mhm.
demand problem rather than a supply problem. It's if there was enough demand for a liberal Joe Rogan, one would be there, right? Because they would be
Yeah.
flocking to them, they would be paying them. But when it talks about like, I don't know what the Democratic Party can actually change that would actually get leftists and the Republicans to stop shitting on them, because they have
When you're,
a lot of incentives to do so. Like there is a large monetary incentive to just hate on Democrats on the left
mhm.
and the right. And I don't know if I think that's separate from policy. Like I think we could adopt every single left wing position that the Young Turks, let's use them as an example.
Yeah.
Cenk Uygur and stuff is calling for, Democrats need to be populist and X, Y, and Z. They need to get rid of their corporate donors. They need to do all this. If we adopted every single one of his policy prescriptions today, he would be shitting us on us tomorrow for something entirely different, because that's how he makes his money. So I don't know. Yeah, I just don't know if that's it's a hard problem, right?
No, I agree. I think there's also like there's a tricky thing of like we talk about Joe Rogan, but it's kind of like there are really two types of like these media channels. One is like explicitly political. Um, I would say people like the Daily Wire or Ben Shapiro, and then there's people who are like not political. And I think part of our issue is like if you are not a political person who exists on the internet, there are a lot of things simply pushing you to be like more right wing. Um, and those are things I think that Democrats, when I say Democrats, I mean broadly the left, like
Certainly.
which is like the way it is, Tumblr discourse essentially dominated the way
God,
that like
yeah,
left-wing people talk for a long time. And it became a place where if you held like positions that were actually really unpopular, even from the beginning, like defund the police was like always unpopular, even at its peak. Um, but it would create this odd echo chamber of like if you mildly disagreed with it on the internet, like you just get barraged. And on like gender issues, for example, like on the bathroom stuff, I personally like think it's insane that people care about who's into what bathroom. I think it's ridiculous. I at least have the clarity to be like, I understand that I'm in the 30% of this country who disagrees, but like the way that you'll engage on the internet like engaging on the internet's how people talk about politics now. Like that's just how it is. Um, you will get having an opinion. Like I'm not a person who, if people have a different opinion on that, think automatically you can't be a Democrat in good standing because I'm like, well, a huge chunk of the country thinks that way. I'll disagree with you, but I'm losing on this fight, so like I need to understand. I need to do a better job of persuading you. Versus Republicans, there very much is a like purity test in the GOP is just how loyal you are to Donald Trump. You could be like a communist. But if you're like a communist who inexplicably loves every single thing Trump does, you're fine. You're fine in
MAGA
the party. That's
communism. Have you heard about that?
no, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Like that's what I was thinking of Jackson Hinkle. It's like
yeah.
I'm exaggerating, but it is true that there's like I think there are like cultural ways of being that being on the left have emerged, where it's like it has pushed a lot of people now feel that we're like sort of the scoldy, preachy party
Yeah.
versus like when I was growing up under the George W. Bush era is the opposite of like if you were like a countercultural kind of edgy person who didn't fit in, um, Republicans were the like Christian conservatives wagging ruler at you
Scolding.
and
They
telling you
were
not to play
scolding
video
you
games.
for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, how dare you have
Um,
fun and do drugs and have sex? That's crazy. Or you shouldn't do that. And now it's Democrats. Is
and
like,
I,
how dare you disagree with me on this issue? You don't agree with every 246 positions I have, Nazi, right? And you will be depersoned in a very real
like
way. Yeah.
that strategy emerged from a place of like, oh, if we have the dominant opinion, we can prevent like through bullying essentially um, prevent this like minority opinion from emerging. But it's like it falls apart when you are the minority view, especially at such a level, because then you just are living in a funhouse mirror.
But isn't that
Like
part of the
if you look,
problem? Because it works in the micro. Like, so someone can
hmm?
get a lot of money, a lot of attention, a lot of influence in their little circles
Oh
by
yeah,
adopting this kind of strategy, but it hurts at the macro. So it
done.
will help you reinforce your influence and your positions of power in your local setting. But when you go outside of your local setting, it's cancer, and it's just hurting the broader movement. And I don't have help fix it, please, because I can't think of a way to do so. Right? Like,
Well, some of it's just like people having courage. Like I think a lot of people hid behind like when there are things that they believe, like policing in particular is a thing where um, I still very strongly believe that like we have long incarceration rates, too many people in prison. But I also do think that like policing is a public service. I'm a strong believer in government to make all of our lives better. People deserve to be safe and to feel safe. And policing should be highly professional and disciplined and like should be effective quality, public servants. Um, a long time, and I don't think I was immune to it. People who believe that were still like hiding behind like, well, the polls and so on. And like I think people just need to, just like people with influence and voice who are afraid. I know a lot of people who quietly will be like, you'll see that they don't pick fights online over an issue because not that they disagree, but they just like don't want the headache. Like I very much made a conscious choice in my own little way to be like, I will take the headache. Like if I'm telling you that I agree with something, but I don't think it's politically viable, I'm being honest about them. Because if I think something is politically bad and I just don't agree with you on the substance, I will also tell you. And too many people are like, I don't want to pick the fight over this. I'm just, and you just need people having a little more courage. Um, is I think the first step, but it's tricky. The incentives. So what I wanted to mention was, you remember the whole thing that happened last weekend about like Joe Biden commuting all these
Of
sentences for
pardoning people. There were a lot of people upset for the Kids for Cash guy got pardoned.
yeah.
There's a few others,
So
right?
so the way that I've been trying to like formulate this thesis of like social media progressive governance, like falling apart on its own contradictions, is that this was a specific backstory to this is there were people released during COVID under the CARES Act for like home sentences because it was COVID. We didn't want to cause like spread of disease. There's capacity in jails to have real distancing. Um, and if Joe Biden had won, these probably wouldn't people would not have had their sentences commuted. But the concern was Trump goes back in and he throws them back in jail. And the ACLU would argue all these folks are like have shown no sign of issue. They've been model prisoners. Like the CARES Cash for Kids guy was like a year and a half left on the sentence. He's in his 70s and he's unlikely like he'll never be a judge again. So his risk of recidivism is low. So I actually don't even agree with that logic. Because like, I agree that this Cash for Kids guy is like very evil and should just be in prison
You're
for the rest
right.
of his
Yeah.
life. Like I think that was like an awful, evil thing he did,
Yeah.
and morally it's wrong to release him. That said, ACLU and lots of progressive groups made this case. It got Biden to do the commutation. And then people who have prison abolitionists in their bio, like fairly prominent people, like flipped out, were like, this is horrible. And it's like, you can't even like the incentives for governors are all scrambled where you'll take the heat for doing this like demand of progressive groups and then these groups
There's
won't
no
even
one
like
who's
have your
actually a
back.
prison abolitionist. Let's be real. There's no one who's
Yeah,
actually a
yeah.
prison abolitionist. There's
um
not one single person. They say they are.
well, I
They
mean,
think they are, but they're
there
not.
are there are people who are that who are just like we want they're like straight up essentially mob justice people. Like they don't believe in prisons because they think everybody that they don't like should just be killed. um I think those
Fair,
are the only
fair, but that's a
true.
different problem. But yeah, I get you.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah. But like you have zero like it's hard for a political movement to even function when it is constantly facing the social media hive clicks and likes because even when it makes a policy demand and that policy demand is given to it by leadership, then people like on impulse and chaos and whatever will just like latch onto a thing and make a big hubbub. And what really frustrates me is that the institutional actors, so those who are more responsible from like the progressive coalition, they don't give cover for this stuff, right? Like the ACLU did a headline, that's it. Like, and everyone's twisting themselves into knots as to why it's not the ACLU's fault. And like, sure, it's ultimately Biden's for giving into them,
yeah.
but like, if this is your ideal scenario from the left, is like you make this crazy leftist demand, it's going to be very popular. The leader does it, then and then you just like give up on like defending it. So like, why would they ever do it again? Like, if I was an elected official, I would have very little incentive to make any concessions to groups like that because I know they won't defend me when people who are their allies attack me online, or they might even join in on shooting on me.
They already got what they
Huh.
want, right? Like, so
Yeah.
they'll just get the twofer. They'll double dip. They'll get what they wanted politically, and they'll get the clout for holding you to a task for it, right? And so it makes them
Part
even
of
more popular. It's crazy. Yeah, I get
it's
you.
everyone chases the cheap heat of the like immediate, like what will do well, what will go viral, and but it builds over time this just culture of like nihilism and distrust, and that works for Republicans because they ultimately are the party that thinks like government shouldn't function. But if you want to be on the left, like you need to have a high trust society. You need people who have faith that institutions can come together and do
Well,
things. And if you're just like hitting the nihilism button over and over again, your project will never succeed.
on that note, the response to the CEO shooter. Did you watch
Mhm.
any of that? Are you familiar with that at all? Like some of the Elizabeth Warren,
Oh yeah,
AOC,
yeah,
a few other Democratic lefty kind of politicians came out and gave some statements. What are
yeah.
your thoughts there? I don't want to pride the pump too much, right? But what do you think of AOC? Let's use that as an example and her response to the CEO shooting. Go ahead.
I think what really struck me was that the difference between, in particular, like Warren and Bernie, in that like Bernie represents a lot of the people who have come and followed him are just not as good as politics as he is, because he had a very first thing he did is he was like very viscerally, directly, like sincerely talking about how awful it is that like a father of two kids was murdered. Like he didn't do the like Elizabeth Warren did a bit of throat clearing of like, yeah, obviously it's bad. Like people are not stupid. They see where your emphasis is. Like Bernie was like really blunt and direct about like do not stuff. And then the second was really interesting was that Warren phrased it as like when people are pushed too far, which ended up being bullshit because at least for this guy, like there's no indication he was pushed at all. Um, like he's not even on United Healthcare Insurance, right? So like, but what Bernie did, which I thought was very legitimate, was talk about the response to this from lots of people shows real anger towards the healthcare industry, and that is real and that is true. Um, I thought that was like a very smart way to sort of like thread that needle because I do think there's a lot of worse sociopathic people on the internet think everybody's like them, and so they see social media response and they interpret it in a way that's like yeah, everybody obviously agrees that like going around killing people I don't like is good. It's like Luigi jokes and memes, right? Because it was funny and it's like gallows humor, and like I don't have I don't have particular like love or affection for the healthcare insurance industry.
Sure. I
Um,
don't think we have
but I'm
anyone
not.
who
I don't.
loves it, but yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I'm also not a person who like I think a lot of people got over their skis and were like super confident that this was like some Marxist revolutionary and it's going to start a wave of blah blah blah, and they got high on their own supply because they like overinterpreted social media signal, and it's mostly like people making like edgy jokes and stuff like that, and the algorithm rewards that.
Yeah.
So of course they're going to see lots of it, and so many people were like telling like one of the most controversial things I said is just like I think most people will feel about this thing in the sense of not going to be like super sad the CEO died, but they're also not going to like approve of this murder. And tons of people are like, no, everyone thinks he's a hero. All of my friends talked to me and they said he's a hero. Or like, I saw this Facebook meme and lots of people liked it. I was like, well, maybe they liked it because it was funny. I don't think they're actually, and the polling is confirmed, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yep. Except for young people. Young
overwhelming opinion.
people, young people. That
Even
I
the
mean,
young people surveys are weird because there's a
yeah.
survey that was like, young people approved of Luigi Mangione, but they also approved a higher margin of United Healthcare. It's like,
I
I
don't
don't know what you're
understand it
thinking.
either, but yeah, they are
Uh,
an outlier
uh,
in these polls. Yes.
I think even amongst young people, there's a higher percentage of people who are like Luigi's great, but it's still a majority of people. The like large majority is still either I think this was bad or I'm like indifferent, right? Um, Notion that there's like this bubbling, people are gonna rout into the streets and start killing CEOs, like it's just not there. And but
I
like it speaks to the earlier
yeah,
conversation about how like social media incentives create like a funhouse mirror,
it does.
which distorts reality, and it tricks politicians into doing like some dumb shit. Um,
And that's my concern, right? Is that Warren and to a lesser extent AOC, but I still have problems with how she dealt with it, right? They
yeah,
fall for these traps and it
yeah,
doesn't go away. Like one of the big things that was a drag on Harris's campaign was her stances during the 2020 primary, right? Where she
yeah,
took some very unpopular stances, or she thought was popular at the time, turned out not to be, and people didn't
yeah.
believe her when she said, "Oh, well, no, actually, I'm different now." And fair enough. Uh, I guess what my question for you, or I guess what I would like to discuss with you, is like how to train our politicians better so they don't do this stupid shit anymore. And it's the most frustrating thing in the world as a Democrat, watching Democrat politicians that should be popular, right, just fall on their face over and over again. Shapiro, uh, I'm in Pennsylvania. Everyone knows this already, right? Like
Mm,
everyone watching me. Um, I I live in a red area in Pennsylvania, but everyone loves Shapiro. He's a
yeah.
Democrat, but he's got broad base of bipartisan support. I think we should be modeling the new Democrat, like he should be our 2028 guy. If I had to pick a guy today, now obviously things can happen in the next 4 years that will change my mind. But if I had to pick a guy today, it'd be Shapiro. I think the Democratic policies should not, no offense to you, be coming out of California. They should be coming out of
Yeah.
Pennsylvania and the East Coast. How do we get that to happen? How do we make that? First of all, do you agree? If not, it's okay. You can fight with me. I fight with my guests all the time.
Sure.
But
Um,
if you do, how do we get that to happen? Go ahead.
I think it's the only main disagreement I have, which you acknowledge too, is just like I have no idea what's going to happen in 4 years. I wouldn't much commit myself to anything yet. But I do think, particularly the stuff he's been doing on permitting recently, I really like, which like speaks to my philosophy of like government should be there. People need to interactions of government need to not feel miserable and shitty, like it's constantly getting in the way, you know. Um, but the thing about Shapiro, I do think that's like there's a mistaken thing of centrist Democrats make a mistake of like over indexing on the Gaza. Actually, everybody does. Like it's the Gaza Israel thing. It's like if you look at voters polling over and over again, like is Gaza, is Israel, is foreign policy at all like your top concern? It was like 3 or 4%. Um, and what Shapiro, like, I think he and Fetterman both think that they have a strong moderate reputation because of like Israel Palestine. Um, I think it's more so just the act of like standing up against your party on a thing that the news will cover. Um, and in practice, like, you're not going to win a Democratic primary off of that just because no one, very few people care enough that to be their main issue, whether they're pro-Israel or they're for Palestine. It's just the truth of it. Um, that said, overall, like, um, I forgot the original question. I'm sorry. I had so many
No,
different
it's all
thoughts.
good. Because I want to talk about that because I think you're right. It's not the issue. It's the fact that they're willing to go against their party or the extremists in their
Yeah.
party on that issue. It could be anything. It doesn't have to be Israel Gaza. I do
We're
think
talking
that
about like
wins.
training politicians. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, if you know how, like, what's funny for me is that like Democrats are always willing to acknowledge this and look at it clearly when it's the other side, and somehow like their brains scramble when it's from our side. Because like
Give me an example, please.
two good examples. One, every single Democrat I know, whether they're like super left wing or not, was like, obviously Trump is trying to appear more moderate on abortion by talking about how he's not going to sign an abortion ban. He like said it over and over. He like really messaged it. He like suppressed basically all the pro-life groups, like crushed them underfoot. Like spent a lot of effort and energy and time conveying like I am not going to sign a national abortion ban. He wanted to appear moderate on abortion. Um, somehow like Democrats who acknowledge this is like an act of moderation that helped him win don't seem to think we should ever do that. But then another example, which I think is um, Susan Collins from Maine. So if you look at her voting record on substance, when like Republicans need her vote, she votes with them every time. Um, but she takes certain symbolic moments to differentiate herself in public ways. So Amy Coney Barrett, who's on the Supreme Court now, when they're voting for her, um, he voted against her, even though because the thing is, and McConnell knew like he had the votes for her to pass, right? So she was going to get on the Supreme Court, but this allows Collins to be like, look, she's fighting against her party. She's such a moderate, and what you saw in the polling from people who polled Maine a lot talked about is like prior to that, Collins was losing. It was like a very visible fight she took on with her own party. where she got to appear moderate and won back a lot of people's trust. And the thing is, like, really, it cost Republicans nothing, right? Because like that person's going to pass anyway. But if that happened on our side, we would like excoriate, like
Well,
even
it
if it was like a
did. Look
symbolic
at look at
vote.
Joe Manchin, right? Like we have an
Yeah,
example, right? And you can disagree with some of what Joe Manchin voted on. That's fair. But like he was a Democrat in a Trump plus 40 district, right?
yeah.
Uh, but he voted for Democrats at least along with Democrats like 85-90% of the time. It's I'm agreeing with you here that it's amazing that we
Yeah.
can't just let people do what they need to do to win. I don't know.
Like in particular, when it's you need to be a little. I feel like some irony is that when people need to be a little more cynical about these things. It's like, let's say there were like right now in the party, it's basically and had for a long time. Bernie actually got a lot of shit for supporting a guy who's running for Congress who's like a pro in a pretty red area, is like a pro-life Democrat. Had been pro-life his whole career, and people really attacked him over it. But like, and then that guy didn't win the primary, and I think we ended up losing that seat. Thing is, having a pro-life Democrat in Congress will mean nothing, right? He's going to vote for the speaker, who's a Democrat, and then he's going to cast many votes that are pro-life, and it won't change anything because Democrats will control the House. Like uh, letting people have a little ideological diversity for the sake of winning, and letting them cast votes like you may not like, but like allow them to stay in good standing and credible. Like it's valuable, but we don't have really take everything so seriously and so on its face, um, that there's very little space for that. Like people, like for example, are really generally kind of mad that Kamala, wasn't like directly like attacking CEOs and stuff like that. Um, and I think in the case of the campaign, maybe a more populist message would have worked, who knows, and so on. But like people are much more concerned about like, are you rhetorically like yelling at people versus like what are the substance of your goals? And like one thing that helped Obama a lot is in a lot of like business support is that he would pass like try to push tax policy that they really didn't like. We'd be really nice to rich people. We'd be like, you guys are creating jobs and business and so on. And like kissing people, their egos are small.
Yeah,
Like
you got to
part of
kiss
what
ass,
made
right?
Elon flip is this like all the reporting that exists, it appears that him not getting a shout out for electric cars during some like event with the GM CEO, it's like really offended him, and he talked about it for years. Versus Obama would like tours with him, be like, "Oh, Elon, you're so great," and Gavin Newsom actually like maintained for a very long time a much better relationship with Elon than other politicians. Not because he made any policy concessions, he just like was like, "Oh, Elon, you're so great." It's like
Is that
I
I've
get
seen some rumblings of that changing recently. I could be wrong though, but I think they're having
he
some real big issues with a few certain laws Newsom is trying to pass, but I could be wrong, please.
well, it was there were laws that passed that Newsom signed that Elon kind of was like, I don't like this, and I'm not going to support it. There's only so far you can take it. Or I mean, Elon's become a very conservative person. Although in practice, actually, he hasn't actually moved. That's the weird thing is like that where your HQ is like a paperwork fiction. There's a lot of Tesla stuff. Like the Tesla offices are all still there. Where factory's still in Fremont, so a lot of this is just like kabuki. But yeah, I don't know. That's
Okay.
in terms of going back earlier, where you're talking about like how do Democrats like learn to be better? Um, I think it is part of it is that the institutional infrastructure around Democrats that exists, like there's a reason why the group, like the way that they function is like to make demands and blast Democrats all the time and essentially hold them hostage. Those are essential strategic choices made by like not that larger group of people who fund these things. And I think like the funding community, the donor community, both from the foundation and just big donor side, needs to fund groups that have better strategic perspective. and make better strategic choices. Where it's
Interesting.
like, for example, like the way you get promoted within the Democratic Party, whether you're a staffer or you want to run for higher office, is like you need to be seen as like good on, let's say, the environment. How are you seen as good on the environment? If the Sierra Club says you're good on the environment, even if the Sierra Club pushes things that you personally believe are bad for the environment, like if they oppose permitting reform or they oppose exports of liquid natural gas, which the modeling shows would displace coal overseas and actually reduce CO2 emissions. But like if they say you're bad for the environment, and you are bad for the environment, and then it's whenever you want to like run for something else, you have the brand of bad for the environment. Or if you want to, as a staffer, get a job because your party loses, you need a job outside the hill. Like, well, you were bad for the environment because the Sierra Club said you were so. Like, you have this entire instru- institutional infrastructure that can change because there's just not that many people involved. And I think people who fund these things need to have rethink the way they do things, but also we need to build counter institutions. Like
Counter
we need to be
institutions such as.
like environmental, like so the Breakthrough Institute does really good work on like clean energy. I don't agree with them 100% on things, but they're like a eco-modernist group as opposed to like traditional environmentalists.
Okay.
They're like we should save the environment by building more cities, clean energy, um, understanding that like people want to have prosperity and not just like traditional environmentalist sort of Malthusian mindset. And I think that's an example of like essentially moderate groups, right? Like need to form to be counterweights where like it's not the case that the only way to be good for the environment is to do whatever the Sierra Club decides is good for the
Certainly,
environment.
yes. And combined with like the distrust that Americans now have in institutions, rightly or wrongly, like I feel is probably the way to go. Lightning round. Okay, so we're gonna
Okay.
go through a few questions.
Sure.
And just first thing that pops to your head, right? Don't think about it too much. Least favorite Democrat.
Hmm. So many choices. This is hard. I'll just pick one. Aaron Peskin.
Why?
He's for people who don't have context, he was the president of the Board of Supervisors in San Francisco. He's got his start in his career as a 26-year-old in Santa Cruz, suing Santa Cruz so it wouldn't build more dorms. Like he's been like a anti-housing person, obstructionist, like his entire life. Like his purpose in life. And he like became the ultimate like power in San Francisco in terms of bureaucracy. Like no person, even all the people who hate him, are like nobody understands the law in San Francisco and bureaucratic procedure better than he does. And he's used it to his power to like oppose and obstruct like
Like a
every
Disney
good thing
villain.
we've ever wanted to do. It really is. And he he was out of office for a while and then he came back and like even when he's in office he like has a lot of like sway and influence. And so I would say I don't even like personally like I've met him, he's like perfectly charming, but like
Sure.
he embodies everything that I think is the Democratic Party.
You oppose him politically, but maybe not personally. Favorite Republican.
Well, that's part of what makes him really dangerous is like he's a charming guy.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
he
I
used to
mean,
drink a lot.
sure.
Like he'd like go out of town and have a drink with like a very old school sort of politician.
Yeah, no, nice, schmoozy, very good at his job. He's a politician. He's charming. He's charismatic, but he wants all sorts of things that are terrible for everyone.
Yeah.
Well, who is your favorite Republican?
Joe Patterson is this assembly member from in California. I don't remember what district he represents. Part of it he follows me on Twitter, so you know. He, I think he's really thoughtful around housing. He hasn't always voted the way I want, but he's like willing to call out his party over it. And also like hit Democrats when they're not living up to their values on like clean energy. He's tried to make it easier to like build clean energy. I think we disagree with a lot of things. He's like a thoughtful guy. And I want like the easiest examples are like very not prominent figures like a Romney or something like that. But I wanted to like highlight some people that I have
Locally,
some
yes,
personal
that you
connection
know,
to. Yeah,
right? I get you.
yeah.
I get you. It's kind of cheating because I'm looking for national figures, but that's okay. We can go with
I
it.
could
It's
give
your
you if
answer.
you want a national one, I'd say like probably Romney.
Okay.
Just because like even when I've I respect people are very thoughtful when they disagree with me. And I think I haven't seen a case where like Romney has disagreed with me where I don't feel like there's a coherent reason for why. Um, and I also think he just is like, there's character. Like when you saw him on January 6th, like he, I think, acted in a way with like real courage to actual personal threat. Like there's political courage normally is like you might lose re-election, but like the man has had to have so much security. Um, to like protect himself and his family because of the positions he's taken. I respect that.
Okay. Okay. What is your personal most right wing conservative belief,
I mean,
if any? I mean, if you don't
so
have any.
I would say I guess it's like it's kind of tricky because it depends on how like all of these are I don't think of these things as inherently they should be right wing, but they are identified more with the right. So like I love nuclear energy. I think nuclear energy is fantastic. I think
Well, how about this then? How about this then? What
yeah.
name something you agree with Trump on? How about that? We'll use that as a metric. Something that you actually support what Trump's doing on, if anything.
If he actually follows through on this, I think his like proposals to make permitting a lot faster,
Okay.
or like 100%, because it's just in this country, it's not just housing's what got me into this, but like through the housing process and politics, I've really learned that like when it comes to just building anything physical in America, you have built an entire edifice of like permits and lawsuits and laws to make it super hard. And this is the thing that like I think is the biggest reason people like feel stuck and stagnant is that much around their life. Like you and I are doing right now, 10 years ago would have been impossible. Would have been science fiction. When I was growing up, and in particular, like this idea that like, I'd hop on a call and talk to you a perfect video, and there's tons of people watching, and like they can also like send you money, and like that was crazy. But the building I'm in was built in like the early 1900s. It looks exactly the same as the cars I drive are like nicer, but like they're still cars. They're not flying. Like the streets I'm on, the train, like physical world around us is really stuck. And the impulses Trump has had to want say we need to speed up all of that. I hope he follows through. But I also say like on the first term, he talked a big game, didn't do shit. So
True.
it's
TikTok ban
the hardest
proposed.
problem with like saying sorry, just quick
Go
thing is
ahead.
like part of the problem when you ask like what do you agree with Trump on? It's like I don't know what Trump agrees with himself on.
Well, that's fair. That's a fair criticism of the question, right? But it is something that I try to like. One of the things that I find interesting and frustrating about modern day discourse is even agreeing with the opposing side on anything is seen as like treason. So I'll have right
Yeah.
wingers on. And I'm like, give me one policy you that Biden tried to pass or pass that you
Mm.
support, and it's very hard to get a straight answer. Same with the left too.
Yeah.
I'll bring some people on and say, Trump, the things he's passed or tried to pass, what are you actually okay with this on? And that's a good litmus test for me for whether I'm dealing with a serious person or an
Mm.
ideologue, right? Is if you can give me an answer to those questions. The TikTok ban. What is your stand? I know this is a little out of left field.
Mhm.
What's your stance? Ban it?
I support
Keep
it.
it?
It's like it's fucking crazy to be frank that we have like during World War II, right? Like we wouldn't allow like a German company to buy up like American news media and just like run pro-German propaganda. And here we're allowing our major opponent in a geopolitical conflict who we like on a zillion different fronts globally are having tensions and conflicts with, to have software that controls what like tens and tens of millions of Americans watch every single day, like the way they form their beliefs, the way they think about things. Like this idea that like, oh well, we can firewall it and so on, like straight up reporting about how ByteDance executives have battled with TikTok, told them what to do, what to display, research done on like comparing on the frequency of how much Tiananmen Square comes up, like just also just fair, not fair. Like they ban our stuff, but we're supposed to like unilaterally disarm.
Not
Like
fair. I mean,
okay,
we do
we'll
have a
allow
First
Facebook.
Amendment, so I mean that is a little bit different. They ban all
Your
sorts of
First
stuff.
Amendment,
So
your First Amendment right is to speak freely however you want, but you don't have a First Amendment right to speak on this software versus that software, right? Like if we were gonna say like banning short form video apps, of course I'd be like that's valid. I don't think it's a violation of your free speech to be like, hey, you should say this on Reels instead of TikTok.
fair enough. Fair enough. It does. It's one of those things I go back and forth on. I understand the security concerns. I do. I absolutely do. I used to be in the military, right? Couldn't have TikTok on your phones because we were
Yeah.
worried about the capabilities of tracking the phones, etc. I get that, but it
Thank you
does.
for your service, by the way.
Oh, it's okay. I wasn't on no front lines doing anything. I was fixing planes
Still,
and shit. But yeah, um,
those planes are important.
fair enough. No, I agree, but it's weird for me when people say that because I know that a lot of
I
people
know.
think like Band of Brothers in their head and stuff, and like
Yeah,
going through the
yeah.
front lines, and I'm like, man, the most dangerous thing that ever
I
happened to
listen.
me is I hid in a bunker while mortars were shelling at the flight line. That's it.
I'm I'm a Democrat and a
Mm,
patriot, which means that like
yeah.
I think boring civil servants that keep our society afloat are heroes too. So
Base. Thank you. You know what? I'll take it. I'll take it. But my other concern, right, is that I don't like the idea that because there is a potential concern that we will force a company to divest, right?
mm,
I worry about precedent. And again, depending on how scary I find China is where I will fall on this position, depending on the day. And I go back and forth on it. Like I said, it's one of those things where,
that's
like,
fair.
please. Oh, you said
No,
fair. I
no,
I, I
I
thought
think
you.
that's fair. I think it's a difficult question. It's like I'm not comfortable with the idea of banning an app. Right?
Yeah.
I do like freedom of speech. I think it's important. I just think it's good because there's been enough evidence showing that they do meddle with the algorithm, and then it is Chinese law explicitly that any company that has Chinese ownership, like the CCP can tell it what to do. Like that's like
Yeah.
written in legal codes and so on, and they can't um, make an argument that they're not subject to them because that is the literal law in that country.
Oh, well, I forget the acronym, but there's a recently law that's being tried to pass through Congress. Jonathan Haidt supports this. Rand Paul supports this.
Oh,
Um,
COSA?
yeah, that's it. Thank you. Thank you for the acronym.
Uh,
What do you think about that? Are you a supporter or are you a opponent? What's your
to be
position there?
honest, I'm not familiar enough
Okay,
with it
fair
to
enough.
know. Like I know that the broad goal was like um, to help with like essentially regulation of like child pornography and stuff like that. And it's like I'm not a full free speech person on that stuff because I do think you need like if you were the state does not have any abilities to like
Yeah,
you view that or access it or control, then you create uncontrolled platforms for like the most vulnerable files out there. But you want to draw lines in such a way that also don't like let the government read everything you're writing and like have total surveillance. I
mm,
don't know what the right ways to draw those lines are, and not familiar enough with the details of this bill to say.
great answer. Again, another litmus test I have for people is when they don't know enough about a subject, instead of making it up, they say, "Oh, right."
Yeah,
I think we should do that more. Like, it's okay to say, "I
yeah,
don't know," if you don't know. It is
yeah,
really frustrating to me when people, in order not to feel stupid or not to seem ignorant, decide to just make shit up when I'm
yeah.
talking to them. And so I appreciate your saying, "I don't know." Um, is there anything that we haven't talked about today that you think we should be talking about? Like, what have I not asked you that you would have liked me to ask you?
It's a good question. Well, watching this seemed like what I have to say. Follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/ArmandDoma. Um,
Links to it in the YouTube's description, by the way. I put a link to his Twitter
oh,
channel.
thank
You
you.
can check that out
Uh,
and all that. Yeah.
and the other thing I would just say is like if you care at all about like, improving the Democratic Party, I think it's really important to figure out a way to get involved locally. That's where really the change begins. And I would warn a lot of people want to get engaged locally, and then they get kind of like jaded or disconnected because it's not immediately tangible or visible. It's like you got to stick through it. And oftentimes, the reasons that your local institutions suck is because the same people have been running it forever. And they don't want new people to come in and shake things up. So what you want to do is come in, get to know people, figure out how things work, and then bring in more like-minded people and so on. And so get involved locally, but don't get discouraged when it's not like immediately, revelatory. That's sort of how change happens. Like I got involved locally like 10 years ago, and it's a long grind. Persuade people to bring in new people and like to change how people view things. Now I think like, for example, YIMBYism, which is like my main issue, we went from a board of supervisors where like maybe one person could be identified as one to now a mayor and a majority that I think are like pretty solidly YIMBY. And it's long, slow work of it. And so, and also just say like, it'd be better for your mental health. Like I like Twitter and online stuff, but I'm always happier in the long run when I just like meet people in person and do stuff
Absolutely.
locally in person. It's just more satisfying and makes you happier than just like scrolling angrily forever.
Doom scrolling is a problem. And I will also say, and I will echo this point, right? That uh, local politics is going to affect you more than federal policy ever will. Where you
Yeah.
live and the laws that govern where you live are actually easy to get involved with in affecting. Go to your
Yeah.
town council, your the various committees. Um, it's easier than you think. Uh,
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on today. Thank you for being willing to have this discussion. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll
It was fun.
confess. I'll confess something now that we're at the end.
Mhm.
For a while, I had you muted on Twitter, right? I was following you for a while,
Oh,
but I muted you. I forget
ouch.
why. I forget why,
Ouch.
but I remember
Okay.
seeing a bunch of like replies that were like muted, so I clicked on it and it was always you, and I was like, I kind of agree with this guy on this guy thing, and so I unmuted you, right? So I'm not even sure why I muted at the beginning, but anyway, I just wanted to confess that.
Funny.
So yeah,
It happens. Like people, you reference Will Stance on
yes,
Twitter, and I
yes,
feel like Will is funny because like I'll go through phases of like, oh my God, I agree with everything you're saying. And then he like it's always interesting because I like have an unexpected take. I'm like, oh my God, you're super wrong about this. And he's always such a like intense about everything he believes that like will make me I see plenty of people I disagree with. I'm like, okay, that's fine. But like I either like really agree with him or I'm like, oh my God, you're so fucking annoying. And you go through cycles like that.
true, true. But let this be a lesson to everyone, right? You can have great conversations even if sometimes they annoy you enough that you muted them, even though you don't remember why. Check them out. YouTube links in description. Okay. I guess we'll see you another
Thank
day.
you.
Well, bye bye.
Yeah, this is great. Take care.
What a pleasant conversation, gang. What a nice talk. Did you guys enjoy it? I know it's a little more high level than recent content, but I thought I wanted to talk to this gentleman, and he was gracious enough to agree to me, so we have a talk. Cal says, I'm guessing you muted him during the whole Biden dropout saga. Maybe, I don't know. Um, it again, it could have been for a few sagas. Okay, when I get in my feels. Okay, could be a few sagas that happen. Um, did you guys know that someone put a bounty on me? Are you guys aware? Like, or at least he's threatened to put a bounty on me. Let's see if I can find it. I'll show you guys real quick because it's very interesting to me that I have a bounty on my head. I don't take it seriously. It's some left winger, right? And they're never exactly their follow through is traditionally pretty poor. Let's say that. Let me get it up for you. Give me a moment. Here we go. Here it is. I'll show you guys real quick. It's a little. I'll just read it to you. From Squidward Leninism says, if you guys wouldn't object to be I made a comment on the Destiny was beefing someone, and beefing with someone, and I commented. Anyway, he says, no, actually, fuck all the way off. I will unironically put out a bounty for this fucking orbiter tomorrow. People like this contribute less than nothing to society. He is yet. This was yesterday. He is yet to do it. I don't know what my bounty would be. What do you guys think? What should my bounty be? If you were to put a bounty on my head, what would it be? How much am I worth to you? Right? How much? What's my bounty, gang? It's this weird shit that people do all the time. This big talk. You know, I would unironically like be impressed if he actually did it. But the fact that he didn't is laughable to me. Like, you have the opportunity. You said you were going to do it, and then you don't follow through? What's going on? At least a Twitch sub? Yeah. I don't know, man. 2 cheeseburgers? Well, fair enough. That's the... You know what? Actually, I want a cheeseburger now. Maybe I'll go to McDonald's after this. I don't know. 1 cheeseburger. About $3.50. A 12-pack of Coke. Not a 24-pack? What's going on? Crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. Man, oh man, oh man. We got some great shows coming up tomorrow too, by the way. So we have 2 more shows this week. Christmas is next week, so I don't know how many shows I'm going to have. I'm going to spend my Christmas with my family. Crazy, I know. But we do have some good shows coming up, okay, that are in the works. I got some stuff cooking for y'all, okay? So tomorrow we're going to be having a panel. It will be on medical assistance in death. Recently, Britain, the UK, has tried to pass a maids law, legalizing it. And there was a lot of discussion. It's moved forward in the process. It isn't quite passed yet, to my knowledge, but it's moved forward in the process. So we're going to talk about maids and the morality around that and what people think. And that'll be a panel discussion tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern. It should be fun. Tune on in. We're going to have some great guests for it. Often Topical will be here. Buckaroo will be here. We'll have a few more. It'll be fun. You guys know my policy or my position on it, okay? You guys are aware. I think it's a dystopian hellscape, okay? But people disagree with me, and they're welcome to do so. And that'll be tomorrow's content. Friday, I'll be talking to a gentleman about morality in general. I agreed to a discussion with him, and so we'll do that. I do have something in the works. I can't tell you what it is yet. But when it gets through, when I finalize it, it will be the biggest show I ever did. I'm really excited about it. I can't tell you, right? But I can tell you I'm excited about something that's coming up. Maybe before the new year, maybe not. One of the things I want to do before New Year's, though, right? And this is unrelated to that. I want to do like a year in review. So if you have favorite clips or favorite shows or favorite moments from my content or content around me that you would like me to review or cover or talk about, please join the Discord. Send them to me. My DMs are always open. You can DM me on Twitter as well, right? You can find me at WickTV. It should be, just give me what you want, right? What you want to cover, like your favorite moments from Wick TV over the year. We've had a lot of them, right? We've had a lot. We've had the assassination attempt of Trump. That whole show was amazing. It was fire, right? Our debate with Destiny, that went really well. We've had quite a few times. We've had times where we've had Brianna Wu and Short Fat Otaku on to talk. That has gone really well. You can have if you want more embarrassing moments of me, you can submit those as well. If you have times you feel like I've been a silly Billy, you can link those as well. We'll cover it. But should be fun. Shoeboot says, did he say he's doing a panel on maids? Yes. Tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern. That will be tomorrow. Gang, I'll save my arguments for then. How's that? What else has everyone been talking about recently, by the way? Anything that I should be covering that you guys haven't seen anyone else talking about? Anything at all? No? Yes? Was Kevorkian right? No. Kevorkian was not right. Shoe Boots, what's your position? I actually do need someone who is anti-maids. I need a teammate. It's me versus 3 at this point. Which I'm fine with, by the way. Dad bod discourse? What is dad bod discourse? What's a dad bod discourse? The spending bill is apparently dead on arrival. Is this the one that the government shuts down if they don't pass it? Are we gonna have a shutdown for Christmas? Shoe Boots. You were very for it. I mean, I could make it a 4v1. Why not, right? The more of you, the merrier. Take you all on. Yeah. I don't know. Yes, spending bills are large, Luminez. Should it be that large? Probably not, but they are. And they are kind of necessary to the government. What BMI range is dad bod? I don't know. What do you think, Soyaddle? Shoe Boots, send me a DM on Discord, and we'll see what I can do. Right? I'm always looking for new voices. I don't think you've been on my show before. Right? And I'm always looking for different people to talk. One of the main things I do with my show, right? One of the main things I do with my show is I try to have voices that normally don't get heard on my show. So small people, one follower wonders, those kinds, always welcome. I can't fit you on every show, right? But we'll do what we can. The answer is Wix BMI. Do I have a dad bod, gang? Is my bod dad-esque? I'm not a dad, by the way. I have nieces and nephews, but that's about it. If you were more than 50, you should be cutting weight. Yeah, fair. Oh, 50 pounds. Okay, yeah. If you're over 50 pounds overweight, you should be cutting weight. Yes, absolutely. I think people should be healthier. Yeah, me included. I'm not 50 pounds overweight. I'm like 20 or 30. That's still a lot. I need to reduce that. But I'm old and I'm lazy. So what can you do? I'm an uncle bod. Fair enough. Senator Kennedy explaining there are millions of 112-year-olds in America? What are you talking about? Okay, sometimes chat, you know what, chat? You guys say a lot of shit, okay? Say a lot of shit. Sometimes it's crazy shit, okay? I don't know what you're doing down there. Like, I will sometimes be having a conversation, or there will be a topic on my show, and my eyes will look to chat, and you guys are having an entirely different conversation about an entirely different subject, and you're just going at each other, right? Like, just fighting like cats and dogs. And I'm always curious what inspired it, right? But I'm obviously usually conducting a show. So it's hard for me to actually check and hard for me to kind of figure it out, right? So, you know. Chat is always right. That's a lie. That's a lie. Why you gotta fill my chat with lies, Toby-Wan Kenobi? You usually start shit? Yes, you do. A lot of people do. Do you guys got your Christmas plans all planned out? I hope you do. It's not too late. Get presents for your families and stuff like that, right? Yeah. So we're kind of running out of talk for today. I'm trying to go for another 30 minutes here, but I don't know if I will be able to. I might just end it early. Again, we have a full week this week. So yeah. Let me ask you guys this while I'm here. Because I know I have a lot of people who disagree with me politically in my chat, right? let me ask you this. And I appreciate you, right? To be clear, I appreciate that you're willing to come to my show, even though you disagree with me. So please don't take this the wrong way. But like, why do you guys watch me? Why do you guys watch me? I'm just curious. Like, I'm glad you do. But I'm curious because I see so many people who will only watch people they agree with. So what makes you guys different? Or what about me makes me different? $5 from Dwight Baldwin to say this. I'm guessing you have more than 20 to lose. You can prove me wrong and show us your belly. How much you betting? What's your bet here? Look, my belly, it's a belly, but it's like, I don't know, even when I was at my most healthy, I didn't have abs. I just didn't. Oh, you're welcome, Armand. Thanks for being here. Frostback asking questions says, good faith dem is my reason. Well, I'm glad. Builder Sambon says, no way I caught a Wick stream. Also, Wick, what do you think about the Timcast being bought by the Daily Wire? I have seen that. I have not looked into it. So I have no opinion as of yet. I mean, like, after he stopped getting that Russian money, he had to make some money somehow. Might as well sell off, right? Cal says, you are honest and are willing to self-reflect. I also happen to agree with you on a lot, but that's not what's most important to me. Well, I appreciate you. Well, obviously you guys don't watch me for my ability to pronounce names. Solemn Argus says this. You have good takes. You are interesting. You bring on interesting people. You maintain being interesting when you do bring people on. You don't shove your left-leaning views you might have down people. You don't ban people for their differing or stupid views. There's a ton of reasons. Well, thank you. Portland is burning and says, I enjoy your spirited arguments and you kind of scrappy underdog of the politics sphere trying to break through the next level. And I'd like to see it work out for you. I would like to see that as well. It's one of those things like, gang, you guys want to, if we're being real with one another right now, okay? If we're being real, let's be real. Here's my, and I know this will be used against me in the court of law. Well, not the court of law, the court of social media opinion, right? I know it will. I don't know why I'm not bigger. I've had more opportunities than most people. I have had huge guests on my show. Cenk Uger's been on my show. Joe Walsh, former congressman, has been on my show. We've had Brianna Wu on my show. She's a friend of the show, right? We've had Destiny on several times. But, like, I get 50 to 100 viewers on YouTube and about 10 to 50 on Twitch. The amount of big shows I've had, and I've had huge shows. I've had hundreds of thousands of views on a couple of my shows, right? But still, I don't know. I think, is that pride? Is that pride? Am I being prideful to think I should be bigger? More people should watch me? Is that it? Might be. Our built environment says you won't like the answer, but you won't hate the answer either. Well, give me the answer. Builder Sambon says you respect proper debate and the truth above all personal beliefs in politics of the day, and that's rare and highly necessary in this day and age. I try. KTC says interesting bad takes on politics. Fair enough. Cal says you don't drive hatred. That's how you grow. The Paul brothers got big off their haters. I don't know. I got some haters. No Cow Mike says the ladies definitely wish you were bigger. The jokes, gang. I love the jokes. Okay, no Cow Mike, you're a good guy. Your jokes are dumb, but you're a good guy. You're a good guy. AKA Batusi says, Bat Toes Eye. AKA Batoes Eye says, you need that corporate money and better equipment along with guests. I've had some good guests. Okay, I've had some great guests, in fact. I've hosted an in-person debate once between Ian Crossland and Destiny. That was fun. I want to do more of that, right? But I need let me say it this way. If you guys all pooled your money and gave me a bunch of money to invest in my show, I would rent a place and have a in-person podcast. That would be my ideal. I would fly people in to talk to them. I think I could be good at it. I've done well at it, right? When I've had the opportunity, it's been huge successes. Huge successes. Okay? So I can do it. I just need look, right now the money you give me goes to necessities, to eating, to stuff like that. And it's enough to live, don't get me wrong. I can save a little too. It's nice. But yeah. Kinetic Paw says fly sexy e-girls in. I'd fly interesting people in. Some of those would be sexy e-girls, I'm sure. But many of them would be like political dudes, right? Like, it would be a mix. Dwight Baldwin says, become extreme on your views, add half-naked women, and your views will increase. Fair enough. Our Built Environment says, did you know that people base a lot of their views on aesthetics? I actually just recorded a video today explaining that the best videos to watch aren't the ones with the highest views. Maybe you're included in that. I'll check it out. Look, I'm a sucker for people covering me, okay? This is one thing I tell people all the time. I don't watch other shows usually. Like there's rare exceptions. I just don't have the time. But if I'm featured, even if it's a hit piece, I get interested. Now I'm like, "Ooh, show me. I want to see what people say about me." It's a little vain. I get it. I know. I understand. But it is what it is. Okay. I do need better aesthetics. That's true. I don't know. I think my mic quality is pretty good. My camera quality is so. I do need a bet. I've look. We've upgraded the background a little bit. I get it. Huh. Our Built Environment says, great. Now I have to make one just for you, but I'll do it because I have less than 10 subs. Look, I'm okay with. I was once, right? Not too long ago. A guy with 1 sub, 2 viewers, okay? And one of those viewers was someone who hated me, okay? Not too long ago, I was that dude. And look at me now. Our Built Environment says, for you, even though you hate my politics, I don't know your politics. If I hate it, then you should change your politics. Because if I hate your politics are wrong. Yeah, I look. I'll tell you what. If this thing I got cooking, if it happens and I don't blow up, then I don't know what else to do. Like, it would be like the biggest thing I could possibly do. And if that doesn't work, I don't know what to tell you, right? Like, there are people out there who would pray for the opportunities I've had in my career. KTC says, show is too muh. A left of center attacking left and defending right. Who are you serving? When do I defend the right? I mean, I probably have if they're right, if they're correct. I defend the left when they're correct too. Be more correct and I'll defend you more. Easy. Gates? Do you think I defended Gates? No, Gates is gone, and that's good. I am excited that the report. You guys know the ethics report on Gates is being released, right? They're going to release it anyway. And I'm excited. It's like Christmas for me. I am absolutely going to do a stream on that once it drops. Dwight Baldwin says some of your topics are boring, to be fair, like the D&D convo. Fair. Like, not everyone's going to like what I want to talk about. That's fair. That's good criticism. Though I will say this. My D&D stream yesterday had more views than this stream today. So I thought this stream was great. I thought it was very interesting. And you're right. I thought the D&D conversation was kind of boring yesterday. The part before the D&D stream was excellent, right? But the D&D stream was like, okay. Do I think Biden will pardon Gates? No. Infallible Foul says, did anyone call you out on how you wanted to LARP as a racist in D&D yet? What do you mean LARP? What do you mean LARP? No, I don't understand that question. I've played racists in D&D, but like racists against elves. I don't think, look, racism against things that don't exist don't count. Yeah, I'm racist against elves. Yeah, those pointy ears. Yeah, I use the slur, okay, against those elves. It's true. But you know what, gang? Elves don't exist. Elves aren't real. I can be racist towards elves because they're not real. It's okay. Nine Ong says the part before, you mean when you were arguing with that schizo? So I agree. It was pretty entertaining. No, I was talking about the time before that. We were going over the school shooter stuff. That was interesting to me. What is an elvish slur? Pointy ears. It's a slur against elves. Is that what you mean? Knife ears. That's another one. Usually it's stuff about their ears. Okay. I don't make the rules. Human supremacy? Hell yeah. Hell yeah, brother. Though I love, look, dwarves are cool too. Okay. If I'm going to play a fantasy race in a fantasy game, it's going to be human 90% of the time. The other 10% of the time, it's going to be a dwarf. Dwarves are my second favorite. KTEC says, actually, I'm trying to help. What audience are you trying to serve that you aren't getting? That's the thing. I'm not trying to, and this might be the issue, right? I'm not here to serve an audience. What I do and what I want to do is I want to provide a space where we can have interesting conversations, where we strongly and vehemently disagree with one another, but are able to talk it through. I want to explore concepts that I find interesting in a way that isn't tied or restricted by ideological prisons, if you will. That's what I want to do. That's what I try to do. I want to be honest, because I think that this space lacks honesty. And I'll just be straight with you. I think that most people in this space are liars. To themselves sometimes, right? There is a distinct lack of honesty in political discourse. There is a distinct lack of people being willing to say when their side messes up. There's a distinct lack of people being able to view the actions of one team in the same way they view the actions of the other. So what I mean by that is a lot of people, most people, before they condemn something, will check to see if there's a D or an R next to the name of the guy who did it. For the girl, because girls can do bad things too. We're not sexist here. Kind of are. But yeah, Portland is burning. You're also not a content creator. You say, I've never told a single lie in my entire life. That's also, you're not a content creator. I'm talking about the content creators. I'm talking about the thought leaders, the influencers. I'm talking about the people who make money, make a living off this. Right. Look, the temptation is there. The temptation is there because I know the formula. I know what will get me more money, right? Pick a team and cheerlead for that team and do so no matter what. To take any event that occurs and repackage the discourse around that event in order to confirm my audience's priors. That's the formula. Do so in an entertaining and a expert fashion, and you will blow up. And you will get money. There's ceilings on that, right? Like, again, depending on all these things. But yeah. It's something that I find hard to do, but it's an easy formula to understand. It's one of those things. If I don't believe a thing, I don't say it, or I don't advocate for it, even if it's on my side, right? Or even if it would help my side. I gotta actually believe in it, which restricts my opportunities. It really does. Cal says, very true. So many people are dishonest and twist things however they can to confirm their priors, whether they realize it or not. And yes, a lot of people just do this instinctually, right? Because it's easier and it's comfortable and it's something that they want their worldview reinforced, like constantly. And look, even though I try not to, there are times when it happens to me. It happens to me. It happens to all of us. And this is what I want us to understand as like a species or as like a community, that none of us are immune to this. None of us, not one of us are immune to this tendency, right? To try and take a square peg and shove it in that round hole, okay? Because it's hard to admit that something doesn't conform with your worldview, and then the dissonance that provides. One thing that I've tried with varying degrees of success to do on my show is to conform my views to reality rather than to conform reality to my views. Nine Ong says, take the Russian money, Wick. Never. I'll take certain money, right? If it's a cause I agree with, I will take their money. I will happily take their money, actually. So if you like what I have to say and you want to pay me to say it, please. We're looking for a new sugar daddy on the stream after Progressive Victory dropped our contract. KTC227 says, okay, why do you hold a nobody on your side to a higher standard to the leader of the other side? What do you mean? Like, I am against Trump. I don't think he deserves to be in office. I think that he is a traitor. I think that he led an insurrection on January 6th. Like, what do you mean I don't hold people I hold people on my side to a higher standard? Trump is bad. I don't support him in any way. I don't vote for him. I discourage people to vote for him. So, please, explain to me, right, how I am not holding my side, or how I am holding my side to a higher standard than that. I don't think I am. Like, I get that criticism a lot. So I'm not, like, trying to shit on you right now. This is something that I hear a lot from people, especially more left-leaning people, is that I hold leftists and Democrats to a higher standard than I do Trump, and I just don't see it. One of the reasons I don't talk about sometimes all the crazy shit that Trump does is because it's par for the course. It's like, yes, he's bad. I know he's bad. We've covered why he's bad. We've covered that a lot. We go through it a lot, right? I don't know. Dwight Baldwin says, check out the show Two Way, most nuanced political show on YouTube. Oh, I might at some point. Got 10 more minutes, gang. I'm going to rant about. Infallible Foul says, Blue Sky did nothing wrong. Yeah, but the people on Blue Sky did some crazy shit when it came to Jesse Singal. You guys see the Well, we covered that yesterday a little bit. Or not yesterday, the day before. I'm losing track of time. We covered that Monday a little bit. How there was a bunch of people who were calling for Jesse Singal to be ripped apart, to be beaten to death by hammers, to be castrated and then killed, to be flayed alive, to be burned, to be hunted down. They've tried to post his address multiple times. So yeah, that's pretty bad. I oppose that. We shouldn't be doing that. Like, that kind of thing, I don't feel that me calling that kind of thing out is holding my side to a higher standard. I just don't. I think that if you're doing that kind of thing, you're a bad person. And I think it doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat doing it or a Republican doing it. The Republicans who did that, the Groypers, let's use that as an example. There were some Groypers recently who made a bunch of rape jokes and rape threats to someone's daughter. That's horrific. That's not okay. That is disgusting, abhorrent. It's gross. I can't even show you the images, right? They're gross, right? And I'd get banned. But I don't check if what political leaning someone is that's engaging that kind of behavior. I just see that behavior and I call it out. Weld QC John says, but Wick, isn't opposing that only helping Trump? LOL. I know you're being silly right now, but there's some people who would absolutely say that, right? Who would say, well, you're drawing attention to our bad actions, but this is taking away attention from their bad actions, so we should never punch left. We should only go after the people on the right who are doing the bad things. I reject that notion. I reject that way of doing things. I think that people have lost trust in Democrats because they don't call out their own bullshit. One of the reasons Shapiro's so popular in Pennsylvania, for example, is that he will call out the left's bullshit. Fetterman, popular in Pennsylvania, he'll call out the left's bullshit. He'll call out their side's bullshit, right? We need to regain the trust of the American people, and that is one of the ways we do so, by taking responsibility. When we get something wrong or we do something wrong, even unintentionally, like if we have a policy that doesn't work and we try it and we try it again and we try it for a third time and it's not working, we have to admit we tried it, we failed, here's how we will adjust in the future. We have to. That's how we get that's the process for getting Democrats' trust, America's trust in Democrats back. Admit responsibility when we fail. Call out the bad actors on our side. Provide alternatives, actual alternatives that are good for the American people, right? YIMBYism is a great getting rid of and deregulating zoning laws, right? Getting rid of the red tape and bureaucracy around building more homes is an excellent example of something that we can unironically run on that would make democratic cities better if we adopted these policies. But the problem is we don't. And it's a problem. Though, again, as our guest pointed out, there are some cities that are beginning to do this, and they are seeing real gains in the lives of their population and people. We just need more of that. Again, I'm not here to say that the Republicans are better than the Democrats. They're not. The Republicans have their own shit, right? They have their own problems. There's a reason I vote Democrat instead of Republican. They try to elect people like Matt Gaetz into Attorney General. Matt Gaetz is a bad dude, okay? We've had this conversation before, though. We'll read that. Maybe when the ethic rule. Okay, I'll promise you guys this, right? I'll also promise you guys this. I'll promise my viewers this. When the ethics reports releases, when the ethics report on Matt Gaetz releases, I will cover it on stream. We will go through it. And if it turns out that he is not found to be guilty or liable or responsible for some of the things that I have made my suspicions apparent about, I'll apologize. And I will redact my statements and correct the record. Or not redact, retract. Sorry. I think it's important to have a clear line of here's where I was wrong, here's why I was wrong, this is my new position. So we'll do that together. It'll be a fun event. Okay. I suspect I'm not going to be wrong, but I could be wrong, right? We'll find out. Clip this for X. Gang, unironically, clip my stuff. If you like what I have to say and you enjoy it and you think it makes a good clip, clip it and then send it to me and I'll share it. This is another reason that I don't pop off. I don't got an editor. Not really. I don't have someone to make clips for me. I've had a really bad experience with my first editor, and my second editor just had a bunch of stuff come up that he can't do the job anymore, really. So I am gun shy on editing, okay? I should find someone who's good at it, but I worry. The first experience I've had with editing really turned me off to it, okay? The insane overcharging, just the craziness, the attempts to instead of just edit my content, direct my content, which I found distasteful. There's a bunch of reasons, okay? I need so yeah. Again, if you see a clip that you like, or if I say something that you like and you want to clip it and you want to send it to me, it'd be a good thing. Help the channel a lot. When are we getting the Epstein logs? I'm not sure. I hope soon. I will cover that whenever that's released. Gang, I don't think it's going to be released, though. Gonna be real with you. I don't think that's it. I don't think we're ever going to see it. I think too many names are on there from both sides of the aisle that I just don't think we're ever going to see it. Yeah, it's just never coming out. I'm sorry, gang. I hope I'm wrong on that. Tessie Johnson says, go on Fiverr and get an editor. It's not complicated. Well, I have trust issues. So, what's my Discord again? Wick TV. I'll type it in chat. My DMs are open. Add me as a friend. Join my server. Because having someone edit my channel does require a degree of trust. That they'll present my content correctly. That they will not scalp me monetarily wise, right? That they will get things done in a timely manner. And it's also partly on me, is that I'm not very good at negotiating these things. I'm just not. It's not one of my skill sets. No Cow Mike says I'll edit for reasonable rates. Only issue is I have no editing skills. Fair enough. Kamikaze says I'd rather cut my dick off than edit a Twitch puller. I mean, fair. AKA Battoza I says, I started following you, Wick, when you were doing the debates. Which ones? I've done a lot. We're having a debate tomorrow. It'll be fun. December is just a hard time to book for, especially around Christmas. So next week, I may have maybe one debate panel. Maybe. But most people are going to be with their families on Christmas. Topic for tomorrow is maids, medical assistants, and death. You need to go live 8 hours a day while we watch you read articles and research like Destiny? I can't do that. I mean, maybe one day, but no, I get up, I move around during the day. I'm doing different things. I come on here for 2 to 4 hours, and I give you guys what I hope to be is enjoyable content. Uh-oh, who broke Wick? Am I broke? I mean, I need more money. That'd be nice, but I'm not broke by any means. How's the end of the year show planning going? Well, as I said, if you have clips that you like of me, or if you have shows that you particularly thought were good, let me know what they are, and I will cover them for my end of year review. It should be fun. Connor calls you ACAB. Nice. Okay, 8 o'clock, gang. We've done it. Hooray! Who's streaming right now? Who can we raid into? Gang, thank you to everyone for coming by today. Today was kind of a weird day, but we got through it. And I had an enjoyable time. I enjoyed our guest. I enjoyed hearing what he had to say. Let's go. We'll raid into Admiral Gibbs. Why not? Oh, Lethe just went live? Okay. We'll raid into the Lethe Waterkai. Oh, wait. He did he or did he not? Gibbs or Lethe? Come on. Gosh. No cow, Mike. You are... Okay. You're a good person. Oh, I'm not rating it. That was on me. Okay, that one was on me. That was on me. Okay. I'll see you guys tomorrow. ACAB says, Wick, if you want to grow, you can change your views on J6. Well, those are my views. I'm not going to change just to grow. Like I said, the space lacks honesty. You may not agree with me, but I'm going to tell you what I think, regardless of whether I think it'll help me grow or not. So, there you are. Peace out, gang.